Every decision they make can have an effect on our lives.
Well, I'm not a crook.
We had to push and shove our way through a crowd of several hundred Vietnamese.
My fellow Americans, I've said on several occasions that I wouldn't comment about the recent congressional hearings on the Iran-Contra matter.
Skies over Baghdad have been illuminated.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Immediately, there's speculation or cause for concern. This is the World Trade Center that was the center of a terrorist bombing.
What difference at this point does it make?
Protesters have now broken into the U.S. Capitol.
This is Our Lives in Politics on the America Out Loud Network with your host Booker Scott and Lou Basada.
I think one of the things that President Trump accomplished that he doesn't get enough credit for are all the judges that were nominated and then subsequently confirmed to seats across this country, and 3 of them in the Supreme Court. And the guy behind that, I mentioned earlier at the start of this hour that we were going to have this attorney that was behind this, but I really didn't set him up correctly, because he was the chief counsel for nominations to the Senate Judiciary Chairman, Chuck Grassley. And I believe that if we had 100 Chuck Grassleys in the Senate, that this country would be a completely different place. This gentleman's name is Mike Davis. He is the president and founder of the Article 3 Project. Mike, welcome to Our Lives in Politics.
Thank you for having me on, Booker.
I mentioned Trump's, maybe it's unsung, maybe it's forgotten, but that was fantastic work that you and let's really give credit to Mitch McConnell. You know, Mitch McConnell, sometimes people get frustrated with him. Maybe he's not the cheerleader that people would like to see in a leader. But one thing he can do is tactically, he can get people through a nomination process and through a confirmation.
Yeah, he's as you said, I was the chief counsel for nominations to then Chairman Chuck Grassley on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator Grassley is my home state senator from Iowa, and I frankly went into the Senate very skeptical of Mitch McConnell, and I got to work with him very closely for nearly 2 years, and I saw that on the Kavanaugh confirmation, along with the lower federal judges, it was that key partnership between Mitch McConnell and Chuck Grassley that got the job done. We would not have confirmed Justice Gorsuch, Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Barrett, a record number of circuit court judges. We would not have transformed the federal judiciary for President Trump if it were not for Mitch McConnell and Chuck Grassley and their leadership, and frankly, their steadiness and their resolve.
So you think it's fair that McConnell gets the praise for that part of his job?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that I don't think Chuck Grassley gets enough credit, but I certainly think that Mitch McConnell deserves the credit he gets, because it was McConnell, it was Grassley were the key instrumental figures who transformed the federal judiciary for President Trump.
And 234 judges were confirmed during the 4 years, which is an incredible number. And of course, the predecessors of Trump, they left some seats open, so it made it pretty easy, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that was what Chuck Grassley did. Chuck Grassley, as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, said he was going to hold off on filling Justice Scalia's seat until after the presidential election, and that was key. That's how President Trump came from behind and won an upset victory, and we were able to get my former boss, Neil Gorsuch, confirmed to the Supreme Court and save, frankly, the Republic. If we would have lost the Scalia seat to the left, we would have lost our country. It would have been game over.
You know, sometimes as we sit back and armchair quarterback from our couches across the country, and we see so many court cases that don't work out the way that we think they should, and then we wonder, are these judges actually working the way we thought they would? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that these judges who President Trump has appointed are constitutionalist, and they've done a very good job, particularly at the Supreme Court and the circuit court level. They're going to make mistakes from time to time. My former boss, Justice Gorsuch, they are lifetime appointed. They are pay protected. They're supposed to be politically insulated. They're humans. They make mistakes. But overall, I think President Trump's biggest accomplishment, most consequential accomplishment of his first term was his transformation of the Supreme Court and the lower federal courts. And remember, it's the judge's job to follow what the law says and not what he wants the law to be. And so that's critically important. As conservatives, we may be disappointed from time to time. It could be the judge has made a mistake, or it could be that the judge is applying a liberal law. We don't like the liberal law. So, I mean, that's what judges do.
And there is a process, obviously, for changing the law, and people get involved, from your local government to the state government to the federal government to make those things happen and changing the laws. But it does seem that some laws are just being ignored. And it seems that this administration, the Biden administration, seems to be taking almost every chance and taking it to the Supreme Court.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have seen this, and that's been the biggest disappointment with Attorney General Merrick Garland. Frankly, when Biden picked Attorney General Merrick Garland, I was kind of quietly reassured, okay, he picked this former federal judge, someone who's respected, who's this adult. I have been stunned at how bad Merrick Garland has been as the Attorney General. And the first couple picks that Garland made to be his deputies were eye-opening to me. He picked Vanita Gupta to be his associate attorney general, or his number 3, to run the civil side of the Department of Justice as opposed to the criminal side. And then he also picked Kristen Clark to be his head of the Civil Rights Division. I worked with Vanita and Kristen on judicial nominations when I was on the Senate Judiciary Committee. These are left-wing radical activists. You can't get more left-wing than Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark. And I was stunned that Attorney General Merrick Garland picked them to put them in such key Justice Department slots because they are radical left-wing activists. And that's what we have seen out of this Biden Justice Department. And it starts at the top. It starts with Attorney General Merrick Garland. I always thought, he's just this aloof, old, former judge, egghead professor type who doesn't really know what's going on. I have heard from inside sources that he is micromanaging the department. Thank God my former boss, Chuck Grassley, blocked Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. And one of my other former bosses, Neil Gorsuch, got on the Supreme Court because it would be a disaster. Again, we would have lost our country if Merrick Garland took Justice Scalia's seat instead of Neil Gorsuch.
Yeah, I agree.
And we've seen this play out in the Justice Department, where they have politicized and weaponized the Justice Department to go after Trump, Trump's top aides, Trump supporters, while they give amnesty and they coddle Biden's slimy, corrupt family and his supporters. It's amazing to me that if you're a Christian praying outside of an abortion clinic, they throw the book at you in Kristen Clark's Civil Rights Division. But if you are an abortion industry activist, firebombing Catholic churches and crisis pregnancy centers and terrorizing Supreme Court justices in their homes, all federal crimes, nothing happens. It's all the way down the line. They'll go after President Trump's top aides for, whether it's classified documents that President Trump had the absolute right to have under the Presidential Records Act when he left the White House and took them to the office of the former president of Mar-a-Lago, an office he used while he was president. So it's completely secure office, yet they want to launch investigations and try to take out Trump. And then Biden has classified documents himself, and they cover it up for 2 months. It's unbelievable how Attorney General Merrick Garland has politicized and weaponized the Justice Department. And frankly, this is my complaint about House Judiciary Committee Jim Jordan. He needs to get moving on this weaponization committee. It is a critically important committee, and here we are 4 months after the midterm elections when he knew we were going to win power, and 2 months after he got the gavel handed to him. Where the heck is this weaponization committee? Why aren't they subpoenaing? Why aren't they having hearings? What the heck are they doing?
It's a great point.
The problem is they compared to the January 6th committee. January 6th had an $18 million budget and 100 staffers. The weaponization committee has 5 staffers that Jim Jordan uses for the full committee, so they're busier than heck working on every other issue that the House Judiciary Committee is working on. They're not focused on the weaponization select subcommittee. Jim Jordan's trying to run both, and he's not running either successfully. They have a $2 million budget instead of a $18 million budget for January 6th. They need to Staff this thing up immediately and get moving. This is too important for our country, for Jim Jordan to go be a performance artist on Fox News and not get anything done. We cannot have a Benghazi 2.0.
And some of my fear about Jim Jordan, as I have been watching him, by the way, I think he's great. I love the guy. But one thing I have noticed about him in the last year to year and a half is that it seems like he is an incredible historian about being able to recall everything that has happened the last 2 to 3 years. And he's great at putting that information across, as you said, on Fox News and other places. But now what is he doing? And I'm not seeing enough. I'm watching hearings, and it doesn't seem like there's a cohesive way to get through these hearings. It seems like each congressperson is getting those video sound bites that they can put out on social media to make their hits, and it doesn't seem like it's really going anywhere. Specifically, the James Comer hearing that I've been paying attention to, and that has been disappointing. Let's go back to Merrick Garland a minute, because you said something interesting that has me thinking. Deep down inside, you had a level of hope that Merrick Garland as Attorney General could be fair. But now you see that he is micromanaging every part of it, and we see this two-tier justice system coming from the Attorney General and from the Department of Justice and FBI. So do you think that is all Merrick Garland, or is there someone like a Susan Rice or someone else in the Biden administration that has told him this is what we want to accomplish?
Are you sick and tired of having to buy belts every couple of years, maybe even every few months? Then you need the Super Belt. The Super Belt is 100% made in America, not just assembled, but manufactured in this great old US of A. The Super Belt is not leather. It's made of an amazing nylon coated in a special polymer which makes it impossibly strong, prevents it from ever stretching, makes it waterproof, and even antimicrobial. Go to thesuperbelt.com to order the last belt you'll ever need to buy. We custom hand make every single one of these belts to fit you perfectly. They start at $60, which might sound like a lot, but you've probably spent 5 to 10 times that amount in your lifetime buying crappy belts. Buy a Super Belt today and never buy another belt for the rest of your life. Go to thesuperbelt.com and order today to support an American small business.
Hello everyone, Lou Bazada here, co-host and producer of this great show, Our Lives in Politics. And on behalf of Booker Scott and myself, I would personally like to take a few moments to thank each and every one of you for listening and supporting our show. I would also like to take the opportunity to invite you to our website, unifiedoneamerica.com. Again, that's unified, O-N-E, America.com. Thank you so much, and please join us there and subscribe.
So do you think that is all Merrick Garland, or is there someone like a Susan Rice or someone else in the Biden administration that has told him this is what we want to accomplish?
Well, that's a very good question. You have to wonder if it's coming directly from President Biden or from Susan Rice or from someone else in the Biden White House. You've seen. Look at the Biden Justice Department. It's Attorney General Merrick Garland's the number one. Lisa Monaco's the number two. She's the Deputy Attorney General who's supposed to run the criminal side, and Vanita Gupta is supposed to run the civil side. And then you have people like Kristen Clark. It is a completely politicized and weaponized Justice Department. And they don't even make any bones about it whatsoever. You have the FBI. We have Chris Wray as the director of the FBI, and frankly, I think he's President Trump's biggest mistake. When I became the Chief Counsel for Nominations to then Chairman Chuck Grassley, my second day on the job was the Chris Wray hearing, and I remember the Democrats and even the Republicans all spun up. This was back in 2017, July of 2017, all spun up about Russian collusion and how Trump was essentially captured by the Russians, and we had to have this FBI director to come in and be independent to save our republic from Trump, and that he was, captured by Vladimir Putin. And I thought it was so strange. But you have to remember, Chris Wray, he's a deep stater. He has been he was Jim Comey's protege, his deputy, for 5 years. right? When Comey was the deputy attorney general, he has gone in there. I don't know if it's just because he's this wealthy, aloof, white guy who doesn't want to rock the boat and he's just scared and, wants to be timid and lets the FBI run him. I've heard that theory that the FBI runs him instead of running the FBI. But the bottom line is that you have very clear evidence that the FBI's Washington field office, several other field offices, and their counter-espionage and counterintelligence components have been corrupted with politics. What the heck has he done about it? What has he done about this? Why is there not something done about this? We know that at Main Justice, the National Security Division is hopelessly corrupted by deep state snakes. They're the ones who went after President Trump for the Mar-a-Lago raid for documents he was allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act. But how did Chris Wray allow the FBI to become this corrupt, and why has he not fixed it? That's a question that the Weaponization Committee in the House, if Jim Jordan would actually get it up and moving with a dedicated staff, these are the types of critical questions that could be asked. And what needs to happen is Jim Jordan needs to stop going on Fox News and sending silly letters and stop just spitting out what other people have already done in the past. He needs to start issuing subpoenas immediately. Subpoena people to come into staff depositions, have his staff grill them with these videotaped depositions, these transcribed depositions, and then set up hearings. And you're right, there doesn't seem to be a strategy, because the strategy is whatever can get Jim Jordan headlines that day.
It's very frustrating as we look at, I think it was about a year ago, right, when the memo came from the Department of Justice about the parents at school board meetings. And that whole mess with the NEA writing a letter and the White House putting the pressure on the DOJ, and the DOJ sends a memo to treat these people as domestic terrorists, just parents going to school board meetings to try to make a difference in their kid's life.
Yeah, or Christians praying, praying in abortion clinics, parents going to school board meetings. They are coming after us. This is like Marxism 101. They have taken over every institution in America, big tech, big media, our government, even our law enforcement and military, and they are going to turn it against us. We are already seeing it. Like we are frogs in a boiling pot, and we need to realize that it's boiling, right? That's why this House Weaponization Committee is so important. You cannot have a country survive if its intel and law enforcement agencies have been politicized and weaponized. That is the end of America as a republic if this does not stop immediately. That's why it's so critical that Jim Jordan take this Weaponization Committee seriously. He should not have been chairing this thing himself. It's a select committee. He's too busy running the House Judiciary Committee. He has 1,000 other things going on. He should have appointed a select committee chairman, and they have a designated staff director, chief counsel, a bunch of lawyers and staff that's designated just to these issues. And instead, he's trying to run this thing himself with 5 staffers, just 5 staffers that he uses on the full Judiciary Committee, and he's outmanned and outgunned. I heard that Jim Jordan didn't want to have a designated staff for this select committee because he didn't want to give Democrats staff. Well, Democrats already have staff. They already have thousands of staffers. They're called FBI agents and CIA agents and the broader law enforcement and intel community. We are outmanned and outgunned. We are going to get destroyed as a country if we do not stop the weaponization of the FBI, the Justice Department, the CIA, DNI, the broader intel and law enforcement agencies.
And when it comes to the Democrats, it seems like their greatest strategy is lawfare and guys like Mark Elias out in front of everything. Where are conservative attorneys?
That's a very good question. What I think happens is, I'll be very candid here. I think too much of the money on the right is monopolized by Leonard Leo. He controls almost all the money on the right, and he's just not red-pilled. He's not going to spend the money on where the money needs to be spent to hire these street-fighting lawyers and other warriors to fight back. And so, if Leonard can't raise money and put it on TV ads so he can line his pocket, he's not going to do it. And so that's the problem, right? The money on the right is monopolized by Leonard Leo, and the money on the left, they get George Soros money. They get a lot of money from a lot of different places. You saw this with Southern Poverty Law Center. They have a half billion dollars in their endowment, and they are organized and they're savage. We're not.
Let's talk about it.
It just reminded, just to close this point out. It seems like conservatives to me, it's like we're right now we are the string orchestra on the Titanic, right? The Titanic is going down, our country is going down, and we're the string orchestra. We want to look good and everything's okay, don't worry about anything. I don't think that conservatives understand what the heck is going on, and there is a Marxist takeover of America. It's likely China driven. George Soros is a big part of this. This is not our parents' or our grandparents' Democrat Party. These are not liberals who love America and believe in equality and due process and fairness. These are leftist. These are Marxist. They hate America. They hate due process. We saw that with Me Too during the Kavanaugh nonsense. They hate equality. We see this now with equity, where they want to do blatant racial discrimination and punish people, reward and punish people based upon their race. Republicans, conservatives need to wake up. We are going to lose our country.
And that seems to be a consistent theme on this program. Earlier, when I opened this hour, I talked about how they make us election deniers, COVID deniers, January 6th deniers. They have this narrative and they have this playbook and they go through it over and over and over again. Tucker Carlson recently released some of the 40,000 hours of January 6th, quote, insurrectionists, unquote. And, I didn't have much hope that it was going to change anything for the people that really it needed to change. And now it has come out, and we have people like Mitch McConnell. And I know that recently on social media, while you agree with Mitch McConnell on most things, you did disagree with his stance in what he said about the January 6th tapes coming out with Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I like Mitch McConnell. I went to war with him on judges. I don't agree with him on everything, but I defend him quite a bit. I'm not going to defend him on this. Tucker Carlson released tapes that clearly showed that Jacob Chansley, Hornman, was innocent. They had police officers walking him to the Senate floor, opening up doors for him, and he went on and took selfies on the Senate floor. And then the Biden Justice Department charged him with some sort of being like the face of this non-insurrection insurrection. It was a protest that got out of control and turned into a riot. It was not an insurrection, evidenced by Jacob Chansley going to the Senate floor quietly, peacefully, taking selfies on the Senate floor and not burning down the place. Insurrectionists would, once they get to a nation's capital, insurrectionists would burn down the Capitol. They wouldn't take selfies and have police escort them around and walk out the Capitol. It's nonsense. And for Mitch McConnell to criticize Tucker Carlson for doing his job as a journalist and showing that the insurrection was a hoax. It wasn't an insurrection. It was a protest that got out of control and turned into a riot. And to criticize that is just baffling to me. And it shows that he needs to get more in touch with America in the real world. There was evidence that Jacob Chansley was railroaded. There is very clear evidence. It's actually indisputable that Jacob Chansley's attorneys did not get this exculpatory video from the Biden Justice Department before they prosecuted him and had him plead guilty to felonies back in September of 2021, and he was sentenced to 41 months in prison. There's no chance that they would have convicted him of any crime, any felony that would have sent him to jail for 41 months. Trespassing, maybe. 30 days in jail, maybe. But 41 months when police are escorting this misguided, mentally ill goofball around the Senate? Give me a break. And I agree with Mitch McConnell on a lot of things, not everything. I defend him constantly. I'm not defending him on this one.
And the leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer, is out on the Senate floor and also all over television just trying to completely censor Tucker Carlson by getting Fox News to have it taken down, which is completely bizarre that the First Amendment would just be run over by the leader of the Senate. And, we had Joseph McBride on this program a few weeks ago. It was right after Richard Big O Barnett was found guilty. And he mentioned that he is keeping some bullets in the chamber because of the way that the judicial system is in those Washington, D.C. courts. It's stacked against him, so he's hoping that the appeals will work better than going before a jury of 95% Democrats in those. Is that a strategy that can work for these people?
It's not going to work because the D.C. circuit's just as bad as the D.C. District Court, and that's the problem, right? We have a D.C. District Court where it is stacked with left-wing radical judges for the Democrat picks by Obama and Biden. And the Republican picks are these weak, stupid, easily manipulated judges. Not all of them on either side. There are some fair judges on both sides, but it tends to be hardcore left-wing partisan Democrats and weak, stupid, easily manipulated Republicans. And we saw that with, Judge Royce Lamberth, a Republican-appointed judge. I like Judge Lamberth. I know him personally, but he got completely duped when he sentenced. He went along with this insurrection political narrative, false insurrection political narrative, went along with the hysteria and sentenced Jacob Chansley to 41 months in prison for being a mentally ill goofball, a performance artist. I always say that I think the reason the senators were so mad about Jacob Chansley is because those 100 senators are the only people who they think should be performance artists on the Senate floor, not some misguided goofball.
I think that's a great way to end this half hour. We've been visiting with Mike Davis. He is the president of the Article 3 Project and was so instrumental in getting so many federal judges passed under President Trump. Mike, thank you for coming and thank you for your work.
I appreciated it. And to Senate Republicans, stop being bedwetters and start growing backbones. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Our Lives in Politics with your host, Booker Scott and Lou Basada.